Hello everyone. Welcome to Hook Not in Nottingham for this week's hockey chat. A day early due to I will be looking after my daughter tomorrow, and I really don't want her running around while I'm doing one of these. It will not be much fun, so we're doing it tonight instead. Plenty of questions have come in as usual, so thank you very, very much for that, for sending them in during the day. Just a reminder that this will be available as an audio podcast afterwards. So you will be able to listen to that on Apple, on Spotify, Amazon. You can actually ask for it on Alexa. All podcast channels are carrying it. So if you prefer to listen, you can listen as well. All I would ask is if, as usual, you could please retweet this on social media. I've just popped it out on my social media on Twitter at John O'Bullard. I'm keeping an eye on that as well. So if you've got any questions to add, then please do pop them on Twitter or pop them in the chat box, but to the right hand side. So we will crack on in a second. Also, if you want to give a subscribe to the YouTube channel as well, that will be very much appreciated. Good evening to everybody who is in here. A lot of the Lion social media team, I'm glad to see. So let's start off. And the first question comes from Mr. Mark O'Doherty, who is a Coventry Blaze fan. And he says, in view of the public announcement of disciplinary actions taken against Danny Stewart, why have the league remained silent on any action taken or non-action against Stefan Hogarth? Surely a statement from the league is appropriate in both instances. This sort of inconsistency only goes to perpetuate the claims of underhand and poor practices in the league. What are your thoughts on how the issues should have been handled? Well, we covered Danny Stewart last week in a lot of depth after the incidents that happened in Sheffield, and I said then that hopefully there will be a investigation, and anything that comes out from that investigation will lead to whatever punishment. And that was done. Fair enough. Can't argue with how that was handled. But I think Mark makes a really good point about Stefan Hogarth. Now, I don't know anything. I don't know if Stefan Hogarth got any punishment for what he did. I would imagine he would have had a talking to at the very, very least. But like you say, nothing was really said. And you're right. Perhaps there should have been a statement from the league on that one as well. And it's all about transparency and consistency at the end of the day, isn't it? So I think that in that regard, yes, you're absolutely right, Mark, that they should have been a statement. And you're right that it does go about the inconsistencies throughout the league. Adam, yes, it was the unwashed comment. Anthony says, surely this is because the EIHL don't actually manage the refs. IHA UK do. All the UK governing bodies are terrible for proper levels of transparency on this. Something will have been said. Yeah, I'm pretty sure something will have been said. But I thought that the Elite League officials were managed at a certain level by Michael Hicks. I've always had that impression. Now that could be wrong, but I'm not. Well, I always thought that Michael Hicks had say over the referees. I know that overall they are encompassed by Ice Hockey UK. What does Tommy say? Tommy says, I fully understand the point. However, I don't think the league publicly punishing a referee will be a good look personally. Maybe he won't be officiating for X number of weekends, but that's it. Yeah. But I mean, Steph Hogarth has continued to officiate since that incident. So I don't know. But I would be very surprised if he hasn't been at least spoken to at some level. At some point. But I think Mark, in his question, makes a very good point there about, inconsistencies and how things could be perceived. I'd assume Hicks is maybe the liaison coordinator. head gnome. Certainly liaison and coordinate. It probably is something that has some sort of role along those lines, I would have thought. Okay, next question comes from Ashley, who's at Ashley941300 on Twitter. He says, Dundee goal, no goal opinion, and should play have stopped after. For those who've not seen this, it was tweeted out by the Elite League earlier. Incredible passage of play in the game between Dundee and Sheffield last night, where it looks like Dundee had scored, and it had actually clipped, the puck had actually clipped the backside of the net, which made it look like the net had bulged, which looked like a goal. So the Dundee players go up and start cheering and actually come together to hug. And the game just carries on. Steelers go up the other end and they score a goal. So absolutely fair enough for me. It wasn't a goal. The puck was still in play. And Steelers went and scored. So the Dundee. So it definitely wasn't a goal because it hit the backside of the net and wasn't reviewed. Should play have stopped after? No. Puck was still in place, so it should have carried on. So it is absolutely fair enough. It is more Dundee's fault that they stopped playing, to be honest. And then Steelers went up and scored. Not that it mattered in the end, because Dundee obviously went on and won the game in overtime. But it was a bizarre incident. As I say, the Elite League tweeted it out from their Twitter account earlier today. So if you want to go and have a look, do search it out, because it is quite a bizarre and odd incident when you watch it. So I would recommend looking at that. I think they tweeted it out at some point this morning. Sorry if I appear distracted, but I have got this on mute. And Forest are winning, and it's only 12 minutes to go. So come on, you Reds. Right, let's move on to the next question. From Craig Harrison. He says, Tom Perring was so one-sided all weekend. Manchester were checking and slashing players right in front of him, yet no calls were made. But the minute Panthers did it, they got called. It was blatantly obvious to everyone. Right. I'm sorry to pick on you, Craig. I really am. But I really do have problems with things like this. I have constantly come on here in defense of officials and referees. Nobody knows the rules more than the striped officials on the ice at any one time. And with the greatest respect, Craig, you're a Panthers fan, and you are coming at it from a point of bias, as all fans do. And I could be wrong, but I would suggest that you probably don't know as much about the rules as what Tom Perring does. So I do get, and this is any fans when I see, especially after a defeat, and I saw it on Saturday night on some of the Panthers Facebook pages after the defeat against Manchester, and he was blaming the referees. Well, the referees didn't score 7 goals against us. The referees didn't put them in the net. That's the team's fault that they allowed that to happen. Now, maybe there was 1 or 2 questionable calls. Referees are human. They are going to make mistakes. Constantly said that as well. But I saw a lot. I've seen, and I've been getting a lot of tweets tonight, to be honest, from people saying that the officials were the same in the game yesterday. Panthers and Manchester. Not for me. There was 1 questionable call where Massimo Carrozza got called for embellishment, which I didn't think was a great call. But apart from that, I thought the officials called the game yesterday absolutely spot on. I wasn't at the game on Saturday, so I obviously can't comment about that. But yeah, it is one thing that annoys me when I see fans of teams blaming the officials when they've had a heavy loss. Tommy, only thing I disagree with on Sunday was the embellishment call. Didn't watch Saturday's game, so similar to me. Anthony Russell says, I'll throw this in there. A fan and a ref can learn the rule book as much as each other, but a fan can never apply those rules. Consistently skating around at 15 to 20 miles an hour, making decisions on the move. When Tusi was pulled, that didn't make sense. I don't recall that one, Adam. I must admit. But yeah, it's just what one of my bugbears is when referees get blamed when the team gets a heavy defeat, and it's often by fans of the club, and the fans of the club have bias. That's natural because it's your team that you're watching. It's natural to have bias to that team. But I will argue that officials know far more about the rules of the game than I would say anybody sitting in the stands, than anybody probably on the bench, and probably any of the coaches as well. Tusi got smacked, did nothing, and got taken off, but the person that punched him wasn't taken off. I don't recall. Was that yesterday? I don't recall that at all. I don't recall that incident. But if to be honest, if it's Tusi, I'm sure that probably something may have happened to lead to him being punched. In all possibility, with considering who it was. I say I don't recall that incident at all. Or do you mean the one where there was the check right in front, right by the Zamboni doors? Because there were, which was Hazeldine coming in with a check, which I thought was a perfectly fair check. But yeah, I just thought the officials called it pretty much spot on last night. Obviously can't speak for Saturday, but certainly last night I thought it was fine. I know Tom Perring refereed both games, so yeah, that is where I am on that one. And for anyone who watches these regularly knows that I will always plump on the side of the officials. They have a very hard job, and like you say, they know the rules far better than any of us, I would suggest. Okay, next question comes from Matt Alford, who's a Panthers fan. He says, if I were in charge of sales and marketing for the club, what incentives would you be looking to offer to tempt the disillusioned fans into giving it one last go at buying a season ticket? If they don't offer something, I feel a max exodus of fans next season. To be fair, Matt, I think there's been a mass exodus of fans this season. A lot of regular faces, a lot of familiar faces I have not seen at all this season. So I think the price is going to go up. And I think that's inevitable because of all the cost of living rises. At the end of the day, an arena is not cheap to run. So they're probably going to put their rental prices up, especially with the increases in electricity, gas, etc., etc. So it's a difficult one to balance. I think I was looking at it actually earlier later last week. I paid £370 for my Panthers season ticket for this season. I can see that possibly being over 400 for this coming season. And I don't know what they can offer. It's not been a good season. I think any Panthers fan who's watched this season would know it has been a pretty bad season. It's a really tough one, but I think they do have to come up with something. And I suppose we'll talk more on this a little later on when some of the more of the questions that I've had come out. But I think there's other things that need to be done, as well as maybe looking at attractive prices for the season tickets. So yeah, I'll move on, and I'll probably refer back to your question, Matt, throughout. Craig Bond asks, do you think the Panthers going very quiet at the moment? There is something going off. I find it very strange that there's not much happening on socials and the podcast has stopped. No player interaction seems very suspicious. Yeah, it is all quiet. And apart from the sort of Matheson interviews that are at the end of each game, and also, yeah, it is. Yeah, Panthers very quiet at the moment, Charlotte. I would agree. And I was looking at Panthers radio, and I think the last 3 radio interviews have all been with Guy Doucette, over, and it's like over a 2-month period. So like 3 in 2 months. Oh, sorry, Forrest nearly went 3-1 up 2 minutes ago. So yeah, it is strange that it's so quiet, because in the past, and I'm going back to the sort of 1920 season pre-COVID, there was generally an interview with a player looking ahead to the weekend. There was generally something afterwards. There was the Panthers radio interviews with players, and it just and a lot of that seems to have stopped. And yeah, and the thing is that's the sort of thing that you can push on social media. That's the sort of thing that you can use to market the club. So it is very odd that they have nothing good to say. That's fine. Nah, good point. Good point. But even so, it seems odd that there's nothing being pushed out there. Now I appreciate that. Obviously, with the changes in the back office staff, that may have something to do with it, and time and time management and that sort of thing. So it could be difficult. But yeah, YouTube interviews also popular in 1920 season. Yeah, and that doesn't seem to be happening. So yeah. I think if Panthers in general had a better media presence, rapport, transparency with fans would be less hostile despite the losing streaks. I totally agree with you, Charlotte. More on that, because this next one comes from retired Panthers fan, who is at fan_retired on Twitter. He says, in your opinion, how big of an issue is it that there is no credible media outlet in the city that can or do ask the Panthers difficult questions and hold them to account for decisions being made? I feel this gives Neil Black and management a safe environment to do what they like. I looked at this when it came through. I thought that's a really, really good question. And trying to think, in the past, we've had coverage from television, we've had coverage from Radio Nottingham, we've had coverage from the Nottingham Post. No coverage in the Nottingham Post anymore, not what I've seen. You don't see much local TV coverage, but you do see a bit. Radio Nottingham still send a reporter to each game, but I remember when Chris, and obviously this is pre-COVID, so probably what, but Chris Ellis was doing things very much like this with the Panthers player on a Monday night and for an hour, and it was a different player or a coach every week, and they were brilliant. I really enjoyed them, but that's not happening now. I believe that there have been requests to Neil Black for an interview, and that has been pushed back. That's what I understand. So that's not great, and I think most people would like to hear from Neil Black to find out what on earth is going off and what is happening and what the plans are for the club, without any shadow of a doubt. But I think it's a great question that retired Panthers fan puts in there, that there is, when you think about it, there isn't really a credible media outlet that's doing the coverage aside from Radio Nottingham, and theirs appears quite limited. So, yeah, that needs to change. And the other thing as well, if you're not getting the coverage from other media outlets, how are you expected to get them, market it out and get the name out there? Social media is fine to a point, but if they're sort of regularly on Central TV, regularly on East Midlands Today, regularly on Radio Nottingham, that's going to get the name out there. And is the name getting out there at the minute? I don't think it is. So yeah, it's a good question, and questions need to be asked, and questions need to be answered. And I think as fans, we need to know what's happening with the club. What are the intentions? What is going to happen to make sure that we don't have another season like this one? Is there going to be more investment in the team? Is there going to be more investment in the facilities and that sort of thing? So yeah, we need to know what's happening, and at the moment we're not. And he's right. There's nobody there to ask the questions that really do need asking. And that needs to change, whether it will or not, but it does need to change. Let's have a look at the comments. Anthony Russell, if you're the Panthers, what do you say at the moment? Come watch the Panthers because you never know what you're going to get because we're so inconsistent. Not even we know. Yeah, that's a good point. Charlotte, in this past year, I maybe heard the words Nottingham Panthers on the radio and TV about twice. Yeah, it's not been. I've seen very little sort of outside media presence away from sort of social media and the Panthers website and that sort of thing. And obviously the Radio Nottingham sort of vignettes that whether Chris Ellis or Chris Gadsby are doing the stuff at the games, but very, very little. And it's sad because it used to be so well covered. So well covered. There's very little to report, to be fair, says Rogue Pez. That's true. But even so, even when any sports team is not doing well, they're still getting reported on. They're still getting covered. And we're not at the minute. Next one comes from Paul Price. He says, based on the current playoff quarterfinal structure, how much importance do you put on Panthers finishing in 4th or 5th place? When it comes to playoffs, I'm not exactly optimistic, Paul, is the way I would look at it. And it's just, I think it doesn't matter whether we are in 4th or 5th place. If we're in 6th or 7th, I cannot see us making that final four weekend the way things are at the minute. All finishing 4th and 5th is decide whether you get a choice of the first or second leg, and that may be decided on arena availability anyway. So it's, I don't put a great deal of importance on it because I'm just not that optimistic, and I hate saying that. I really do. But there's just nothing that I can see that fills me with any sort of optimism that the Panthers can make the final 4 weekend. And to be honest, I'm not exactly filled with that much optimism of whether we can finish in 4th or 5th place. I mean, I think 6th or 7th is still a possibility. I think we will qualify for the playoffs. I definitely think we will. But I think beyond the quarterfinals, I think we could be struggling. Any lower than 4th and 5th, finish 6th, you're playing 3rd place. That's probably going to be Cardiff. 7th or 8th, you're playing Sheffield or Sheffield or Belfast. That's going to be tricky. So yeah, Forest have won. Excellent. Liverpool in the next round. It's like going back 40 years. Right. Let's move on. Ashley 941300 again. He says, why did the Panthers not give Curlin Hopkins or Morgan Clark-Pizzo a chance? Great question. And I put this out on a tweet earlier this week where I was asking exactly the same thing. I am amazed that Will Curling has not got a start lately. Absolutely cannot believe that he has not got a start. And it blows my mind. I fully expected him to get a start on Sunday and it didn't happen. Because Kevin Carr looks shot. He looks tired and he needs a break. He's played 40 straight games, I think someone was telling me yesterday. That's too many. Far too many. I mean, how can you expect a player to perform consistently if he's getting ridden, frankly, and he needs a break. And if Curling doesn't start in the game against Fife on Wednesday, I think Will Curling has every right to ask questions and say, what the hell are you playing at? Why am I not getting a start? It's not as if we're riding high at the top of the league. We're in 4th place. We're very inconsistent form-wise. Just give him a couple of games. I just don't see how it would make any difference. He needs the game time. We don't want to get to a situation where it could be an important game, like a playoff quarterfinal, and say Carr picks up an injury in the game and Curling has to come in and he's not played a game for God knows how long. Bit like Dan Green in that quarterfinal against Sheffield. Yeah, he needs games and he's not getting them. He desperately needs them. And I'm annoyed that he's not. With regards Jack Hopkins and Morgan Clark-Pizzo, I would like to see them given a run in the team, especially if there's imports carrying knocks. Again, we're in 4th place. We're going to finish around there, I think. What harm would it do to give them a chance in the team, maybe on a higher line to see what they can do? But they are, of course, playing in the National League where they are getting regular ice time probably in all situations like power play, penalty kill, as well as 5-on-5. So maybe that might be the right call to keep them in the National League where they're getting that ice time. But I would, again, both those two, I would like to see given a run if it's at all possible. But certainly on Will Curling, I just don't get that. And that sort of leads on to the next couple of questions. Melanie Clark says, why do you think we treat backup goalies like this? Kevin Carr doesn't appear to have had a break all season. Sam Gospel and Jackson Whistle really got games, and Patrick Munson only got his chance when Garnett was injured. Why would we have a backup and hardly play them? It must be demoralising. I totally agree. It must be incredibly demoralising, especially when Will Curling's sitting there and seeing the team not doing too well, and he's thinking, well, surely I must get a chance, and doesn't. It's ridiculous. And Sam Gospel was in the same position. Really got ice time. And now I know Sam Gospel's doing very, very well with Leeds, but could he have been something at elite league level if he'd have been given the chance? I think that's the thing that you have to look at. I don't know why backup goalies are treated like this. And the thing is, backup goalies, especially in the elite league, British backup goalies are backup goalies. The import goalie tends to get ridden. However, we need to be developing goalies who play at a certain level, because Ben Bounds and Jackson Whistle ain't going to last forever, and they're going to need replacing at some point. And if you've got nobody with any game experience, then what on earth are you going to do? It's probably the most important position on the roster. And if you're going to be a Great Britain team who has nobody with any experience coming in, then you're going to be in trouble. So I think it's something that needs to be looked at, not just at Panthers, at all clubs. But, Panthers certainly don't seem to be giving Will Curling his fair opportunity, in my opinion, and from the questions and a lot of other people's opinions as well. Let's have a look at the comments. Mark Rackham says, if you can promote the Nottingham Lions and there's scope to promote the Panthers, there is no excuse regardless how a team is faring. Totally agree. And you only have to look at, since the new media team took over at the Lions, the way that they have promoted the club has been nothing short of phenomenal, and it's paying dividends. People are coming to watch, more people are coming to watch, more people are engaged on social media, and there's a buzz about the Lions, which is great to see. It's been absolutely fantastic, and the media team have done an amazing job. Anthony Russell, With all the will in the world, why is Hopkins going to come to play for the Panthers right now when he's on the first power play unit and a team about to win a league winners medal? Fair point. Jamie Bartholomew, Clark Pizzo on the line with Russ Cowley this weekend would have learnt lots. Anthony again, leave Hopkins with the Tigers, let him win, get him up next season when he's flying and full of confidence. And Jamie Bartholomew, why does no elite league team take a chance on Sam Gospel? Really good question. Really good question. But if he continues with the performance that he's putting in for Leeds, it could happen, possibly. This other one is netminder related, and he says Dave at Being It Dave, who I think he's a Steelers fan. In fact, he does say so in his question. He says Bryson Priest with 2 wins this weekend for Dundee. As a Steelers fan, I was happy for the lad. Do you think his performance will give other Brits the opportunity, or are coaches so fearful of not playing the import, thinking Nottingham 5-0 in Coventry and Curling still on the bench? Yeah, great point. Great performance by Bryson Priest this week, especially again coming in against Steelers, which were what I believe was his first starts of the season, and gets 2 wins, 2 overtime wins at that. 1 a penalty shot win. That's a phenomenal performance. And a massive credit to him for that. Steelers in a bit of a rut at the minute. They're not on the greatest run of form. But even so, you would expect the Steelers to have too much for the likes of Dundee and too much for the likes of Fife. And they are not in a good place at the minute, on a bad run of losing form. With regards, will it give other Brits the opportunity? Sadly, I'd have to say I don't think it will. You only have to look at Jordan Headley. He had some starts for Coventry when CJ Mott was injured. And as soon as CJ Mott was fit again, he's brought back in. I imagine as soon as Adam Morrison is fit again, he will be back in the starting lineup. I know James Downey's had a few starts at the Storm this season, and Jackson Whistle at Belfast. But apart from that, doesn't seem to have been a lot of opportunity for British netminders in the Elite League this season. It's difficult. It's difficult to say, and I'll follow it on with this next question from David Stevenson. He says, "What would your opinion be on Panthers going with a British netminder next season? For example, Jordan Headley. Mine are that whilst maybe not as solid initially, there would be a chance for them to grow into the position, but also free up an import slot. Yes, it would free up an import slot, but at the same time, are a team such as Panthers, with their perceived standing in the Elite League, going to take a risk on a essentially untried British netminder at that level?" And yes, you're right. They could grow into that role, but we all know how much importance is placed on the Elite League title. Is bringing in a fresh British netminder going to allow a team to challenge for the title? Probably not. But I wouldn't by no means be against Panthers going for the likes of Ben Bounds or Jackson Whistle again, who are both excellent netminders. Could easily hold down a starting berth, a main starting berth, and also, as you say, it frees up an extra import slot for the skaters. But yeah, it's a difficult question because I absolutely see where you're coming from, but I think in such a results-based industry, it's a massive risk, a really massive risk to go with a untried British netminder. And I know that Jordan Headley has had Elite League starts, but has he had enough experience to become a starter at a club like the Panthers, for example? I'm honest. To be honest, I'm not so sure. But yeah, like I say, Whistle or Bounds, I will be quite happy to see them. Leah Scott asks, just wondering when Mr. Black will be releasing next year's season ticket prices. Don't think the freebie fans will be buying them. I've asked Panthers if I can have free tickets every week. No reply. I was talking to a family yesterday and they said they got free tickets from school for every home game. They were laughing at me for paying. To go before I sort of come to this question, it has been very, very noticeable that there has been a lot of newer fans or fans who haven't been before in the arena, certainly over the past few weeks. The crowds have increased in Nottingham, but I get the impression that they are giving away a lot of either discounted or free tickets. And certainly from people who were around me yesterday when I was at the arena, I got the impression there was a lot of people who were either taking in their first game who had not been many times before. Now, everyone has to start somewhere, and the way that you grow a crowd is by getting people in to sample the product. But the difficult thing is then turning them free tickets into paid tickets. So that is where the sort of marketing has to come in. I mean, Leah, if you're emailing asking for free tickets, I've got to be honest, I'm not surprised that you're not getting a reply, because if we could all get free tickets, we'd all be emailing and we'd all be going on free tickets, and then the club would be making no money whatsoever. But I can understand the frustration if you are there having paid for a ticket and you're sat next to people who haven't paid for a ticket. I can sort of understand why there'd be what's going on here. With regards next year's season ticket prices, and I alluded to this earlier, I think they're going to increase. My wife got her Steelers season ticket form for next season, and her season ticket has gone up from £375 to £400 for 25 games. And my daughter's has gone up £25 as well. So it looks like I think all the Steelers tickets have gone up £25 across the board. So it's quite a hefty increase. I would expect very similar at Nottingham and probably all around the league. So, I would expect that season ticket prices will have to be released very, very soon. And I'm expecting them to increase. And then decisions will have to be made on the back of that. I mean, I'm in the position where I work a lot of weekends, so I do miss games. So I've got to weigh up whether I buy a season ticket or whether it's not worth it because of the amount of work to do. Plus, if I'd like to do more commentary at Manchester next season, if that's at all possible. So, if I'm in Manchester commentating on games, I can't be at Panthers watching games. So, but that's a different situation. I appreciate my situation isn't the same as everybody else's. So, I think they need to get the prices out. But it's going to be very, very difficult to see, how. Very difficult to see how there will be an increase in the number of season ticket holders, to be perfectly honest. And this is the thing, and I think this goes back again to Matt's question. And I think the problem is that the club at the minute has no identity, or very little identity. We seem to be plodding along. We're not getting communicated to. Fans seem to be a second thought. And I appreciate that there's a new team there, and they need to be given a chance. But it starts with the person at the top, and we're not hearing from the person at the top. We don't know what his plans are. We don't know what his plans are for Glasgow. We don't know what the plan is for the next few seasons, because there doesn't appear to be a plan. We're hearing nothing. We're being left in the dark. People are walking away in droves. I'm really worried for the first time in a very, very, very long time, I'm worried about the future of the club, because it appears that there's no or little investment. There's no identity. It's so samey. Going to a game at the minute feels like a chore, and it shouldn't feel like a chore. Because it's just not exciting, to be honest. I just don't find it exciting anymore. And there's no identity. Look at Sheffield. Sheffield, as much as I hate the colour orange, and I've never liked it, but they have an identity. Their kit is orange. Their identity is orange. You go to their arena, everybody's in orange. There's the identity. We don't have that, because there's so many different colours that we don't have a colour identity. We're supposed to be black and gold, but you see very little black and gold. There's not that many people in shirts anymore. And, it really bothers me, because, there's so much potential at that club. So much potential. The arena is in a fantastic location. It's got the seats that I think with work could be filled or mostly filled every week, and have been mostly filled in the past. And it just seems to me that there's nobody cares anymore. And it's showing, because everything is just so bland, and and it goes back to all the previous questions, like what retired Panthers fans said, nothing in the local press. Like Matt said, what are they going to do to tempt disillusioned fans? But there doesn't seem to be any impetus to do anything. And, I really fear for the future of the club. And it makes me very sad. It does make me very sad. Because I think there's so much that could be done. There's so much potential, and it's just not being realised. And I think it now needs, and I've said it before this season, and I'll say it again, I think it now needs Mr. Black to sell the club. He needs to decide, is he concentrating on Glasgow, or is he concentrating on Nottingham? And if he's concentrating on Glasgow, fine, sell Nottingham, sell them to someone who's going to take us to a next level, and work and invest in the club, and work at getting it back to where we was. Because at the minute, it's going off a cliff, and it's going off a cliff very, very quickly. And that concerns me, because I don't want to see it go off a cliff. I want to see the club thrive and be successful. But I don't see how that can happen with the way things are set up at the minute. And it needs to change, but it can only change when the man at the top does something about it. And we're not hearing from him. We don't know what his plans are. So that only leads to speculation. There needs to be transparency. Mr. Black needs to tell us what's happening. Because at the end of the day, we're paying a lot of money for season tickets. We're paying a lot of money for game tickets. And I feel we have a right to know. And we're not. We don't know anything, and something needs to be said, something needs to be done. There, right? I'll get off my soapbox now. Just a few questions remaining. So, if you want to pop any more on Twitter at John O'Bullard, or in the chat section, and I will get to them very, very shortly. Quick look at the comments. Anthony Russell, I once went to a game in Amsterdam where nobody in the crowd was wearing a jersey. It was the weirdest hockey experience of my life. Whole atmosphere was far too relaxed. Nobody wants that. Totally agree. The team care, but not sure about the off-ice team. I think the off-ice team care. I think there's just not enough of them. I just don't think there's been enough investment in the off-ice team as well. There's too many people doing too many jobs that each job is probably getting done a little bit and not everything and what should be concentrated on isn't being concentrated on fully because there isn't the resource there to concentrate on it fully. I hope that makes sense. But it's not good. It's not good at the minute. Jamie Bartholomew says the National League have trumped the Elite League, when it comes to the playoffs and how many tickets have the Elite League sold for their weekend with the ridiculous £115 one band price. I had a look just out of curiosity before I did this earlier on the Motorpoint Arena website, and you could still buy 2 tickets together for the playoff weekend in Panthers blocks. So in block 15, you could get row N, 2 tickets together. In block 16, row M, 2 tickets together. And in block 17, I think it was row E, 2 tickets together. So that would suggest that ticket sales have not been great at all. So, but that was something we covered quite substantially last week. Next question from Paul Gretton. If we had to keep any of the inputs from this year due to decreased revenue, which 3 would you take back? My 3 are Norwich, Bayagian and Brassard. Well, Welsh is coming back because he's on a university deal. So there's one. I quite like Boyvan, but he's not a top line player. Bayagian, he puts the points up. I like Norwich and Brassard as well. I'll be honest though. I mean, I wouldn't be too upset if there was a complete replacement of the inputs. I've got to be honest. There's a couple, 2 or 3. Well, I wouldn't be upset if they came back. Norwich being one, Brassard being another, Boyvan being another. But aside from that, we need more quality. We need more investment in the team to have that quality, and I don't know if we will. And the thing is, if crowds go down, is that going to put a pressure on the budget? Probably. And then are you again having a budget decrease, and then you not getting as other players, and you're in the same situation or possibly worse off. Toussignon, you see, I've got to be honest, I don't understand all the love for Matthew Toussignon. He's not scored a point in something like 16 games. I think, or he may have got a point this weekend, but his first one in so many games. He's not much of an agitator. He can't fight. I don't understand the outpouring of love for him. I think he's all right, but I don't think he's the sort of top player that he's made out to be. Sorry, but I know that's going to upset a lot of people, but I just don't understand. I just don't see it personally. I got one on Twitter from Rodney Rouse, Deming. I think the thing is because he's unlucky with Deming because he's had so much time off with injury. He's clearly not fit, and he's come back and he's on the fourth line. So we're not seeing enough of him, of what he can do. I think he has got this sort of X factor where he could, but because we've seen so little of him this season, it's very difficult to sort of come to a knowledgeable conclusion on him. He was brilliant in the Elite Series, but he's had so much time out with injury that it's so difficult to sort of give an opinion on to me. So, it's like, do you give him a chance again next season? It's a difficult one. It's a really difficult one. Another question from Ashley 941300. Which 2 teams won't make the playoffs? I think looking at the standings, 5 won't, because I think they're getting a bit too far behind now. Um, and Manchester are looking precarious with 5 points off the playoffs. However, Manchester have a double header against Fife this coming weekend. One at home, one in Kirkcaldy. So they are massive. I think Manchester have to win those two games to sort of stay realistically in the playoff race. Now, they could have a run at some point, but they desperately need to win those two games for me, Manchester, because they've got some hard games coming up, and they've got 4 fixtures against the Steelers coming up. So it won't get any easier for them. So I think Manchester have to win their 2 games this weekend. But let's revisit that one next week after this weekend's game. Stephen McBlain, Belfast fan, and that's the last question. So any more, pop them in the chat. And he says, will you be watching any of the Belfast Steelers games at the weekend? No, I won't, because my wife is going, which means I get the fabulous job of looking after my 6-year-old daughter all weekend. So I won't have chance to watch the games, unfortunately. I would like to. I maybe would have bought one of them. But I'm not going to get that opportunity. And they're 2 massive games. Belfast have come up the rails now and now lead the Elite League by 2 points. Steelers do have a game in hand. But I think if Belfast win both games in regulation this weekend, I think it's very much their title to lose, because that will put them in such a glorious position, 6 points ahead. With games now starting to rapidly run out as we head towards the end of the season. So I think that'll be a huge series. But Steelers aren't playing well. They're beset with injuries at the minute. Belfast on a great run of form. I can't see past Belfast for those 2 games at the minute, to be honest. But you never know. Stranger things have happened in the world of hockey. All right. We will probably leave it there unless there's any more questions in the next 30 seconds. Just don't forget that this will be available as a podcast on all main podcast platforms if you just want to listen to the audio. And don't forget, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and that way you will get to know whenever there is a live hockey chat. It will generally be on the Tuesday night at 9 p.m. But if there's any changes, like there have been this week, and it's been on the Monday night, you will know from that. Belfast for the title, and I'll get the call from Mr. Smith. And indeed you will, and that and that yeah. And that's a story for another time, I think. Okay, nothing more coming in, so it only remains for me to say thank you so much for watching. Thank you for coming on in your droves once again. And some more coming in. Do you think Dan Kerry needs to ask tougher questions in his interviews? Possibly, but at the same time, it's very difficult to interview someone and doing it in Manchester. It's very difficult to interview someone, a coach, especially straight after the game, because they're straight off the ice. The adrenaline's still flowing, and it's very difficult sometimes to know what to say or what to ask, especially when it's the losing coach as well. So, maybe ask tougher questions if it's not a game situation. But I think for what you're wanting to put out after a game, it has to be sort of 3 very quick interviews for a bit of a vox pop, no more than 2 minutes. But I think if you're doing something in depth, then I think that yes, is your opportunity to ask tougher questions to get answers. Is my opinion on it. Mark Rackham, Jackson Whistle is tied for the Elite League lead in save percentage. When was the last time someone not named Ben Bounds has been up there? Ben Bounds probably, if you mean British. But I think if you look at it, Jackson Whistle has not played. I think he's 12 or 13 games. I'll need to have a look at the stats, but yeah, he says about 12 or 13 games. But yeah, his save percentage and his form has been absolutely outstanding. Adam, his interviews with Gee need to be tougher questions and not lead the questions like he normally does. I think that is the opportunity where you can ask tougher questions and try and get the answers that a lot of people are asking. I would generally agree with that, but I think straight after the game, when it's coaches' questions, it can be very difficult. Having done that job, it can be tough. Okay, so thanks for coming on. Thanks for getting involved as you always do. It always is appreciated. Remember to subscribe to YouTube. Remember that it's available as a podcast. And hopefully we'll be back next week at the normal time of 9 o'clock on Tuesday. But all that remains for me to say is thanks to everyone who sent questions. Thank you for watching. And I will speak to you again soon. Have a great week. Take care. Bye-bye.